My sister has always had a soft heart, soft as sweetbread. She cried after it was done, after the old woman burned inside her own oven, her screams smothered by crackling flames. Maybe my sister cried because she still believed in kindness, maybe because she knew, even then, what was to come. I held her as she sobbed, both of us covered in soot, her fingers blistered from holding the oven door shut. I murmured words of comfort, but she only clung to me in silence. When the fire died, she dried her tears and followed me through the witch's awful house, its sugared windows blackened by smoke, its sweetbread walls crumbling to ash. We scavenged through the attic, stuffing silks and golden trinkets into sacks. She didn't say a word, only nodded when I asked her to help. Maybe, I thought, it would be enough. Enough to keep us safe from our stepmother's cruelty. Enough to keep us from ever going hungry again. We stood outside the cottage, staring at the dark trees that stretched before us. The only path we had known was gone, the trail of white pebbles lost in soot and embers. "I do not want to go back," she said at last. It was the first thing she had spoken in hours. I hesitated, nor do I, but where else can we go? She bit her lip, glancing at the charred remains of the house. Then she turned to me. "Wait, there is something left in the kitchen." "The kitchen?" I asked in horror. She nodded. She did not think I was paying attention, but I was. I know which of her potions might be useful. I followed her inside, but stopped at the kitchen's threshold, unable to step any closer. She moved with certainty, her hands skimming across the shelves, plucking bottles and vials with practiced ease. She was no longer trembling. I watched, unsettled, as she carefully packed the bottles between our stolen silks and gold. "Let us go." She led the way. There was no path, yet she walked without hesitation, as if she knew the forest in a way she had not before. "How do you know the way?" I asked once as we huddled beneath a gnarled tree, waiting for the deepest part of night to pass. She only smiled faintly. "I simply know now." A shiver crept down my spine, but I said nothing. By dawn, we reached the edge of the woods. Our father's house stood before us just as we had left it. When he saw us, he ran to us, arms open, tears in his eyes. "My children, I thought I had lost you." I embraced him, but anger burned beneath my ribs. He had not lost us. He had let us go. My sister did not move. "Lost," she repeated, voice soft. Our father hesitated. "Yes," he said finally, eyes flickering with something like fear. "Lost." I dropped my gaze, unable to look at him. My sister did not. After a moment she stood. "We will see the stepmother now." Our father sighed. "She has been very ill," he admitted. "Not long after you left, she took to her bed. She has not woken in days." My sister said nothing. In our stepmother's chamber, the woman who had sent us to die lay pale and motionless, her breath shallow. My sister knelt beside her, brushing sweat-dampened hair from her forehead with a tenderness that made my stomach twist. "Here," she murmured, tipping a vial to the woman's lips. "This will help." I almost stopped her, but she held up a hand, and I faltered. The next morning our stepmother was well. "It is a miracle," she exclaimed, embracing us with mock tears. My sister only smiled. That night at supper our stepmother beamed at us, her shawl wrapped loosely around her shoulders. "We must celebrate! What would you like for dinner, my dears?" "Sweetbread," my sister said. I turned to her, eyes wide, but she only took my hand under the table and squeezed it gently. "But you are still recovering, stepmother," she added. "Allow me to make it." She moved through the kitchen with practiced ease, kneading the dough, stirring honey into the mixture. She had never been much of a cook before, yet now her hands worked with familiarity. Our father hesitated before taking his first bite. He looked at my sister, something wary in his gaze. She smiled. "Go on." They ate. I did not. Our stepmother coughed first, pressing a hand to her throat. Then realization dawned in her eyes. "You!" she rasped. Our father choked, his lips stained red. He clutched at his chest, eyes wide with horror. We were desperate," he gasped. "She made me do it." My sister shook her head. "You let her." He slumped forward, his breath rattling. Our stepmother tried to lunge at us, but her legs gave out. She fell, her breath ragged, a thick scarlet trickle slipping from the corner of her mouth. "You! Little witch!" she wheezed. My sister watched as the light faded from their eyes. I turned away, burying my face against her shoulder. She stroked my hair gently. It is done. She took my hand, led me from the house. The cool night air wrapped around us as we stepped into the dark. You are afraid, she murmured. I swallowed hard. Yes, she smiled. You do not need to be, she whispered. I will protect you. The moonlight cast long shadows across her face, and for the first time I wondered who it was that I had truly brought back from the woods. My sister has always had a soft heart, soft as poisoned sweetbread.